we go. There we go. Now everything's live. So head over to YouTube and we'll watch the live stream together. I'll stay on here for a couple minutes for all the people who are joining on. But yeah, I'll be watch. So, we'll keep it on. People can watch along with me because I want to see this. If you haven't seen it so far, there was a break in what happened because he did break down crying, which was he was very emotional. He was talking about Joseph Rosenbaum, what happened when he came up on him. So he did get emotional and he did have to take a break after a little bit. So, all right. So now I'm watching the live stream. So head over there, go to YouTube and join me over there. Cause that's where I'm watching the live stream with Kyle Rittenhouse.
Antioch Police Department in Illinois by my house.
Who took you there?
My mother.
Okay. How did you get to Antioch from downtown Kenosha?
Dominic Black drove me.
Okay. And then Dominic Black drives you where?
He drives me to my house in Antioch, Illinois, where I meet with my mother and sisters, and I tell them what happened. I sort of tell them what happened. I was still in shock.
So at this point,
and then we go to
what has happened? He's on direct. So the guy who's talking right now, he's defense counsel. And again, if you're watching this through YouTube, go over to, or I'm sorry, if you're watching this through Instagram, go over to YouTube and watch it over there because that's where I'll be watching and chatting and live streaming all this.
When you get there, are they looking for you?
No.
The guy who's talking right now is defense counsel. I think he's the lead defense counsel. So he's walking him through direct right now. And he's gone through the whole story, how he got there, why he was there, what he was doing. They got up to the Rosenbaum part and he did break down crying because obviously he did kill a man. What happened, but
I couldn't give you that exact time, but until
poor kid. I mean, he's on the stand for this. So.
And were you having any physical discomfort as you waited there?
I was vomiting and having panic attacks, and my head was spinning, and I couldn't think clearly at that point.
I have nothing further.
Okay, so now they're going to go to cross, and this is going to be precarious because the kid, I think, looked. I mean, he looks like just an innocent kid who got caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the prosecution has not been very good at doing, portraying people in the light that's most favorable to their case. They've come off as kind of jerks. So let's see what this guy does. This is, I think he's the lead prosecutor in this. Yeah, everyone who's joining right now, head over to YouTube because I'm live streaming the Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle's on the stand right now, so that's why this is kind of a weird day right now. What's going on?
Good morning, Mr. Rittenhouse.
Good morning.
Everybody that you shot at that night, you intended to kill, correct?
I didn't intend to kill them. I intended to stop the people who were attacking me.
By killing them?
I did what I had to do to stop.
Yes, that's such a loaded question.
By killing them?
2 of them passed away, but I stopped the threat from attacking me.
By using deadly force?
I used deadly force.
That you knew was going to kill?
I didn't know if it was going to kill them, but I used deadly force to stop the threat that was attacking me.
You intentionally used deadly force against Joseph Rosenbaum, correct?
Yes.
You intentionally used deadly force against the man who came and tried to kick you in the face,
yes.
Correct? You intentionally used deadly force against Anthony Huber, correct?
Yes.
You intentionally used deadly force against Gage Grosskreutz, correct?
Yes.
With regard to Joseph Rosenbaum, you fired 4 shots at him, correct?
Yes.
You intended to kill him, correct?
I didn't intend to kill him. I intended to stop the person who was attacking me and trying to steal my gun.
Since August 25th, 2020, this is the first time that you have told your story.
So if you guys are joining right now on Instagram, live streaming Kyle's testimony over on YouTube. So head over to YouTube, just search California Underground. You'll find it. You'll see the live video right there.
Of your actions that night, correct?
I've seen certain videos, not all of them. I've seen the majority of them actually here during the trial.
You've also had the opportunity to read articles. People have written interviews, things like that about what happened that night, correct?
I do my best to avoid what people write on the internet. A majority of it's not true.
You have also sat here through 8 days of trial, correct?
Yes.
And you've had the opportunity to watch all of the videos that have been
Yes.
played in this trial.
Yes.
Sir, if you could please let me finish my question before answering, and I will do my best to let you finish your answer before I go on to the next question. Fair?
Yes.
You've also had the opportunity to listen to the testimony of all 30-some witnesses that have testified in this trial so far, correct?
Yes.
And after all of that, now you are telling us your side of the story, correct?
Correct.
Someone has a question. What's the question? We're watching the live stream of Kyle's testimony. I wasn't expecting him to actually get on the stand, so this is a big deal. We just lost audio for a second. I don't know what's. I don't know what happened here. Yeah, it looks weird today because I am live streaming what the Kyle testimony right now. This is sort of live streaming on YouTube.
Your Honor, I don't want to jury here. He's commenting on my client's right to remain silent.
No, Your Honor, I am making the point that after hearing everything in the case, now he's tailoring his story to what has already been introduced.
The problem is, this is a grave constitutional violation for you to talk about the defendant's silence. And that is, and you're right on the borderline. And you may be over, but it better
Oof.
stop.
Understood.
This is, I can't think of the case, the initial case on it, but it's, this is not.
So,
good.
if you're in a
All
jury right now,
Ask the jury to come in, please.
this does, this doesn't look good. This doesn't look good for the prosecution because questioning went fine on direct. They walked him through. He broke down. He cried. He looked like, he came off as a scared little kid, which I imagine he was. I mean, it's a scary predicament what's going on there. And but now prosecution comes out, guns a-blazing, basically saying, yeah, you intended to kill. So, that was your intent. And they're basically trying to say you went there intending to kill someone. But what happened is now they're he's running afoul of a constitutional issue with the Fifth Amendment and your right to remain silent on this. And the judge reprimanded him. And the judge has been very fair thus far. The judge is, he's a little kooky, but the judge has been very, very fair from what I've seen. He's trying to keep this, as even kill as possible. This is probably one of the biggest cases since, I don't know. I wouldn't say OJ, but there's probably been bigger cases since then. But it's got that kind of publicity to it that it's such a big case. But he's done a very good job. He hasn't inserted himself into it. He's just kind of
semi-automatic rifle that evening, correct?
Yes.
You had it loaded with 30 rounds of full metal jacket ammunition, correct?
Yes.
full
That
metal
weapon
jacket.
with 30 rounds is capable of killing at least 30 people, correct?
Yes.
You had arranged to have Dominic Black purchase that weapon for you in Ladysmith, Wisconsin in early May of 2020. Is that correct?
We were up north shooting and not shooting. We were up north going camping, and Dominic Black brought his rifle, and we were talking. I was like, hey, what if we get a rifle for me? I'll give you the money. You can purchase it. It's yours until I'm 18. So I bought the rifle for Dominic, and I can use it. But once I'm 18, we can do a private sale, and we can have it turned over to my name once I turned 18.
Because you knew as a 17-year-old, you could not have that gun, correct?
I knew I could not buy that gun.
You knew you could not possess that gun also, correct?
No.
You weren't aware that under Wisconsin law,
Oh, your question. If the press wrote the order to get vaccination, it's not law, then why are companies and federal employees' bosses complying? This order is going to get tied up in court.
It was unlawful for him to purchase the gun.
it wasn't just unlawful.
It's not an emergency
It was
order if
unlawful
they
for
give you
to
2
bring it.
months and they're
Correct.
saying there's an emergency.
Illinois,
You can't claim it's an emergency and say, oh, we're going to put it in place in 2 months.
Firearm owner identification card.
It's going to get tied up in court. I have no doubt. I mean, there's a flurry of lawsuits happening.
You turned 18,
Um,
correct?
so what Biden is trying to do is he's trying to use OSHA
But you didn't have one.
to be the
Even
police
after
and the
this
strong
gun was
arm
purchased for you in May,
of his
you never
enforcement.
got one after
And they're going to try and use this across the country.
Actually, I
And you see
applied
here in
for
California, they're
one
trying to use it in
in
California
2020.
to try and use these
due to the
agencies,
charges
which is
involved.
why,
There was
you
a
know, the fourth branch of the
backlog
government is such a
in
big,
Illinois
scary
to get a
thing
FOID
because
card
they're not accountable to
after you
anybody.
filed
The
charges
admin
against
fourth
me.
branch of the government,
It
which
was
I like to
denied
call it,
because of the charges
is
here in the state.
You found
is
out
really,
about that after
really scary because they're not accountable
criminally
and you
charged in
can't
this
you
case.
can't
I found out
vote them
about
out.
this
They're
in
there for
November
life.
of
So
2020.
they'll just
Letter
do
was
whatever
sent
saves
by
their
the
job.
president.
So you knew that without that FOID card, the gun could not go back to your residence in Illinois, correct?
Correct.
And you agreed that the gun would be kept at
Find
Dominic
good
Black's
employment lawyers.
stepfather's house here in
That's the
Kenosha,
answer to your
correct?
question.
Because he had a safe, yes.
And you agreed that you wouldn't have access to that gun, correct?
We agreed that the only time I would use the gun is
You don't have to comply because
when I was
it's
with
well,
him,
private companies
go
can
to,
set their
like,
own
the
vaccine
shooting
mandates.
range or up
But if they're
north.
trying to say it's because of OSHA
the
or
only
whatever this
time
order is, that's
Prior
you
to
know
the
you
night
can
of
say
August
it's
25th,
been
2020,
it's been held up
that
in
you
court.
ever
So
used that gun was up in
it's amazing
Ladysmith,
that
Correct.
they claimed
go
Trump
to the Bristol shooting
was
range ever.
a dictator, but in
Not
the
with that
end,
rifle, but I did.
it's now Biden who's saying don't listen to the judiciary
You didn't
branch.
ever go
So,
to the Bristol
and
shooting
everyone who's
range
wondering why
with
I'm
that
like
gun,
in this
correct?
weird angle
Correct.
right now,
And you picked out.
we're watching the live stream on YouTube, so head over there
because
because we're watching
Dominic,
Kyle Rittenhouse testify.
correct?
Yeah.
You could have, if you wanted to, chosen from any number of guns that were for sale. Fair enough.
That were at that store. There weren't many, but yes.
I'm sure the store in Ladysmith isn't the only store that sells guns, correct?
You can ask questions.
That was a question.
No, it was a statement.
Isn't
Oof.
it correct, Mr. Rittenhouse, that there are other places
Judges having none of this.
besides that one store in Ladysmith, Wisconsin?
I believe so, but that's where we're at. So that's where we got the gun.
And you, if you wanted to, could have given Dominic Black.
Yeah, Logan. So what they're trying to prove is,
Other locations.
did he have any premeditated intent, or
Didn't cross
did
my
he
mind
intend to
not
come with a
say
dangerous
that.
weapon? Because some of the charges
Why
are
did you pick
homicide with a
one
dangerous
Dominic
weapon.
Black to buy for
Um,
you? And
So they're
the
trying to
other
prove that
as
he knowingly
opposed
went
to
somewhere with a
pistol,
dangerous weapon.
shotgun,
But
or some
it,
other
you
type
know,
of rifle.
in Wisconsin, I
cannot
believe the law is a little
legally
different. You can protect your
possess
property.
or carry a
with
pistol
force
because I'm
in
not
Wisconsin.
18 in
So
Wisconsin. I
It's not
believe it's
against the
18 in
law
Wisconsin for a
to protect your
pistol.
property with force.
But with the rifle, I knew I could possess that rifle. I knew I couldn't buy it, but I could like take it to like the shooting range or possess it. And with shotguns, they didn't have any shotguns in stock. That was my original plan to get a shotgun for trap shooting.
You know, keep in mind, anybody who knows anything about guns, they're trying to
I
ask,
didn't want to go to Walmart.
why did you pick this particular
So
gun
your
to get
understanding
and
at
not
that
go with
time
other
was that
guns?
Wisconsin law prohibited you as a 17-year-old.
I would point out that in
possessing
2020,
pistol,
there was
but you
a
could have an
rush.
AR-15?
Anybody who knows about
Yes.
guns or is a
What
gun
was that
owner, you
understanding
know
based on?
that guns and ammo
Well, the
were hard to come by in
understanding was
2020.
based
There was
on,
a supply chain
when we
issue in
would go up
2020
north,
like no other. So to
we were
try and say like, oh, well,
supposed
why
to
did you pick
down
this
many
gun or this gun or this
sister,
gun?
and we were allowed
I-
to carry
because,
the
you know,
rifles around,
things were getting out of hand, and
The officers over there.
it's
said
the
it was
only,
fine.
you know, it may have been the only weapon he
I'm gonna
could have got
move
back
to
then.
strike as hearsay. What officers would have told
You
them.
asked the question on what the source of his knowledge was. It's not admissible, and none of this is, frankly, and that's why I interrupted before. What the defendant believes the law to be, what the district attorney believes the law to be, what the defense believes the law to be, are irrelevant. I will tell you when I instruct you what the law of Wisconsin is pertaining to the possession of a firearm by a person under 18, and that'll be the source of your knowledge. I'm allowing the testimony right now because it bears on. There's an old maxim under the law of ignorantia juris non excusat. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse. Ignorance of the criminal law is not an excuse. If you commit a criminal act, whether you knew it was criminal or not, you're responsible for your conduct, and because you're responsible to know the law. It's not relevant, except in this case, there are specific issues about his awareness and knowledge about certain conduct that is relevant on some issues. So it's quite complicated. Hopefully it'll sort out when I instruct you at the end, but that's why I'm allowing the questions and the answers, but do not be confused about what anything that these people say is not necessarily accurate as to the state of Wisconsin law. Any question about that? Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
Yeah, so
you're telling us
he's
that
just the
reason
judge.
they
What happens is the
wanted
judge
Dominic to buy
directs,
AR-15
gives the instruction to the jury what the law is
the only reason
at the end of the
because you
case,
felt
and that's up
unlawful
for the
possession.
jury
Correct.
to figure out
You didn't pick
at
out
the end. It's not
AR-15
for the
any other
prosecutor. The prosecutor just so when you go into trial, what happens is
But
you're trying to prove your case because you know
You
the
didn't pick it
elements
out
of the
because you wanted to
claim,
go
whether it's civil or
hunting,
criminal,
did you?
and you're trying to prove the different elements.
You didn't pick it out.
And then when you
because
go into a
were
jury,
gonna
if you ever served on a jury,
use it to
you
protect
go
your
in
house,
and
correct?
correct.
You picked it
you
out
get a
because-
list, and they ask you these basic questions.
Thought it
Did
looked cool.
defendant meet X? If yes, move to
It
this question. If
resembled
defendant met X,
the types
move
of
to the next
weapons that are
question.
used in
When you meet all those
first-person
elements,
shooter
they
video
would say,
games,
okay, then you
correct?
should find a verdict of guilty.
I don't really play
Um,
first-person shooter video games.
So
I
it's
have,
not up
but
to the
I've used
defense
a
or the
variety
defendant
of
or the
guns,
prosecutor to tell
shotgun,
the jury
rifles,
what the law
there's
is.
some- there's
It's
guns
up to the
that
judge
resemble all guns.
to give the
Isn't it
instruction
true
what the
when
law
you would
is.
hang out at
So
Dominic
for him,
Black,
for
you
the
would
prosecutor
play
to
Call of
try
Duty
and
other first-person
say this
shooter
is what the
video
law
games.
is,
Sometimes.
And those
he
are
has to,
games
he's
in
trying to
which you
prove
use
a
weapons
point
like
that he had the
AR-15s
gun
to
illegally. He
pretty
shouldn't have
much
had it at his
shoot
age.
Anybody who comes at you,
But
correct?
the judge is like, you're walking a fine line here, because that's my job to tell him what the law is, not your job. So if you want to prove the elements, go ahead, but don't tell him what the law is.
Question, to be honest.
Isn't one of the things people do in these video games try and kill everyone else with your guns?
Yeah, the video game. It's just a video game. It's not real life.
Now, you introduced yourself as living in Walworth County right now. Is that
Yes.
right?
Anyone who's joining on
On the date
Instagram,
that
we're
this
watching
all
Kyle
happened,
Rittenhouse
you were
give testimony right now
resident,
live on
correct?
YouTube. So
You
head over to
had
California
not
Underground on
known-
YouTube,
Correct.
You had
YouTube,
not
and
spent any
watch
significant
along
time
because
living
he's on
in
cross right now
Wisconsin.
with the prosecutor. So it's
No.
I didn't expect Kyle to
You
be on the
agree with
stand.
that,
So
correct?
if you want to
No,
know why we're at this weird angle
I
and why
spent
I'm
time
kind
at
of
my
talking
father's house,
in a certain
partly
way,
live here also, so
this
it's
is why,
really
because
fine.
we're watching Kyle
You
Rittenhouse.
indicated you had attended, was it Penn Foster High School?
Yes.
That's an online high school?
So he's trying to prove
So
that
you were not
because you play
attending
video
this
games, that's
first
why he went down to
No.
Kenosha that day to shoot as
And
many
at
people as possible as
time
if he
that
was in a
all of
video
the
game.
Things in this case were happening from the time the AR-15 was purchased to the night of August 25th. You were 17 years old that entire time, correct?
Correct.
Could we have exhibit number 7 up, please?
Four doors, more whores. Somebody asked, having the rifle underage, is he already guilty? Yes or no, or is it more? I think that's one of the charges is that he
Up on
possessed
the
a
screen.
firearm
You recognize that?
underage.
Yes, that's my old TikTok account.
That was a TikTok account that you had during the summer of 2020, correct?
Yes.
And it says your name on there, Kyle?
So
Yes.
you're trying to
Your
prove that he's
username
a
on
17-year-old
TikTok
boy who
was
does
four
dumb
doors, four
things.
whores.
Yes.
And that's a picture of you there with your AR-15, correct?
Yes.
And underneath that, you have put on your profile the phrase bruh, B-R-U-H, I'm just trying, B-R-Y-N-A, be famous. Is that correct?
Yes.
You're the one who wrote that.
Yes.
You
So are they-
testified that at some point.
Are they trying
you
to
were
link the fact that he
involved
had a
in,
TikTok
some
to?
sort of EMT cadet program.
I was a.
This is why he
firefighter
went on a
EMT
shooting
cadet
rampage
in
because he
Canada.
wanted to be famous.
When was that?
I was a cadet at the Antioch Fire Department. I believe from 2018 or 2019 up until the incident of August 25th.
An EMT cadet is someone who's just beginning the process of eventually achieving full EMT certification. Is that correct?
No.
Were you studying to be an EMT before August 25th, 2020?
I was learning about certain things in the field of firefighting and EMS.
But that's not actually formal classes, is it?
Good morning.
No, we met.
Yeah,
once a week
again, I'm just going to keep
depending
repeating
on the
it.
day,
Everyone
we
who's
either,
joining on and hopping on,
um,
watching on YouTube,
EMT stuff,
live
like
streaming on the
Firefighting
California Underground
Airways,
YouTube page,
or
the
we
Kyle
do
Rittenhouse
firefighter stuff
testimony
like
right
with
now.
us
So
trying
if you want to hop
learning
over
how
there,
to,
join the live stream.
crawl through
There'll be
buildings.
chats and
And
you know,
these
I'm
are
also
things that you
picture in
did with
picture,
the,
so you can watch my
platoon
reactions to
Antioch-
what's going on here.
Antioch Fire Department.
That's why we're
You
at
weren't
this
a
weird.
member
I know
of
everyone's all
were
used to
you?
I was.
coffee and California
You were
politics, but this is sort of big. I wasn't expecting
On
Kyle
duty
to
member on the
hop on.
roster of the Antioch
There is going to
Fire
be a
Department?
podcast
No.
tomorrow, though.
When you say you're a
Cynthia's going to
member, what do you
return.
mean?
We're going to
I
that
was
one. We're going to
a-
talk
the
exclusively
Antioch
about
Fire
California.
Program.
I just figured this
Where
was such a
issue
big deal.
shirts
Sometimes
and
nationally, we got to
whatever.
focus on national stuff. I mean, we
We
try and
would
focus
help
on
with the pancake
California as much as
breakfast at the
possible, but
DFWs, and we would wear
you know,
Antioch Fire
this is
Department
big.
staff
This is
shirts.
a
We still
big
have
deal
all of our
about
laws
self-defense, and this is a
And
big
maybe
deal
I
about
didn't
self-defense in
express
America and whether or
myself
not people
clearly.
can do
You
it.
were
And
not a member of
So,
the Antioch Fire
whether he's getting railroaded because of BLM and Antifa, or you know, all that stuff, and what happened in
So
2020.
you'd go out and fight fires.
This is a big
We can go on
case.
ride-alongs, but we can't go into burning buildings for liability reasons.
You'd go out there and you'd save people from burning buildings?
Not me personally.
Because as a cadet, they would never let you anywhere near that, right?
They wouldn't let any of the cadets go into an actual live fire.
At the end of whatever this program is, you weren't actually going to be an official firefighter, were you?
No, it's to help prepare you for the firefighter academy, firefighter EMT academy.
And you weren't going to be an EMT at the end of this program either, were you?
No,
You know that to be an EMT, you have to be 18 and a high school graduate, correct?
depending on the state, in Illinois, you can take a class at the college at 16, and you can have your EMT license by the age
I
of
just I don't
17.
know where
I
the
was-
prosecution's
next
going
class
with some of these
was-
lines of questioning. I
You
don't.
never did any of that.
No, I was.
If I don't understand, I can guarantee the
Tonight,
jury
August
has no
25th,
idea
You're here in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
where the
saying you're an
prosecutor's
EMT,
going.
Correct?
Yes.
Well, like what does him being an EMT have to
Yes.
do with what they're trying to
You were
prove?
also telling people you were.
Are they trying to say that he
19
was
years
not a
old? That was
qualified
too, right?
EMT or a
No,
medic
that's how
at the
everybody
scene that day? So
says
why
it.
else was he there?
You never volunteered it at all, did you?
I didn't.
Because
mean-
you knew as a 17-year-old you shouldn't have been there, right?
No, I just didn't find it relevant to give my name. Well, I gave my name, but my age to anybody. It wasn't something that came up in conversation.
It's because you felt if people found out how old you were, they'd realize you shouldn't have been there, right?
No, it just because it didn't come up in conversation. If somebody would have asked, I would have been like, "Yeah, I'm 17."
So you felt that as a 17-year-old, it was appropriate for you to be out on the streets of Kenosha with an AR-15 then. Fair?
I believe I had any other right to be there as anybody else.
As any other adult.
Maybe trying to make him seem delusional.
No.
And maybe they're trying to chip away at like
You indicated that
the
you
good
were
guy
working at
story
the
of like he was
Recplex
just there to help
and
clean up and protect the
been
property and
working
provide
for a while
medical.
before that. Is that
That
right?
may be where
Yes.
they're
That
going
was a
with this and try and
YMCA
whittle that
down
down.
there,
So it's like, well,
correct?
why else would you show up to Kenosha
You
that
had
night
gotten
with an
furloughed
AR?
there when COVID hit in March,
Yes.
and you'd only started working at the Recplex on August 14th, correct?
I believe I got hired before that, but I was on vacation on August 14th, so I couldn't. I was on vacation.
Creating a narrative that he
So I
has a
couldn't
savior
start until
complex.
August 14th.
Maybe.
Your first
I don't know.
time working at the Recplex was on August 14th.
Maybe they're
I
trying to
believe that
paint it
was my
as
first day.
irresponsible what he did
And then
and
you
doesn't
worked
waive the fact that
The week
What he
after
did.
that, from August 17th to August 23rd, correct?
I believe so. To August 24th, I worked.
And then your final shift was on August 24th, correct?
Yes.
You worked a total of 41 and a half hours at the Recplex, correct?
That's the number you got.
And you were a lifeguard.
Yes.
You were walking around their swim area with one of those red.
Law of self-defense
life
just
safety
tweeted
things,
the
monitoring
prosecutor said in
Correct.
video games point to shoot everybody who
So
comes
that was
out.
at the indoor pool.
comes at you?
It was
Kyle,
at the
it's a video
indoor-
game. It's not
it was
real
at
life.
I don't know if you're familiar with the Recplex.
I am.
I guarded the water park area and the competition pool.
So they've got a water park area with a slide and a zero entry pool. Is that right?
Yes.
And then next to that, they've got a larger, almost Olympic sized pool where swim meets happen.
50-meter competition pool divided in half to make it a 25.
Okay. And you were lifeguarding at both of those.
I would rotate. We had rotations, and me and other guards, we would do three. We had 3-person shifts. We would rotate out, watching the different areas of our zones.
You indicated that at no time did this gun, this AR-15, ever leave the state of Wisconsin. Is that right?
Other than the night after, other than that,
Before the shootings.
correct.
There was a time, though, where you wanted to have it with you down in Illinois, isn't it? It wasn't there?
I believe there was a time when me and Dominic were mad at each other. Yeah,
You were mad at Dominic,
There we go.
me and Dominic
Is that better?
were mad over something.
and you wanted to have the gun with you down there?
I think I said something along those lines.
You'd agree with me.
It seems weird
that-
because we're watching live on YouTube. We're live streaming the Kyle Rittenhouse testimony.
Let me back up for a second here. You have
So I'm live streaming, watching the Kyle Rittenhouse.
that you.
So if you want to head over there to
used
YouTube, that's where I'm watching it.
against Joseph Rosenbaum.
You can join the chat
Anthony
and
Huber,
go over there.
man who
That's why
attempted
it's
to
kind of
win
weird.
the
People are hopping in. They're like
Close
just seeing me
Sports
staring
and
at a computer screen
correct?
today.
Yes.
And you did that because you felt that your life was in danger from those 4 people, correct?
Yes.
And you are telling this jury that it was, in your mind, justified to use deadly force to protect your own life, correct?
Yes.
You'd agree with
On
me
cross, you
that
can do
you
a
were
little
not
bit of leading
allowed
questions.
to use deadly
That's
force
fine.
to protect
So
that
on
person.
direct, you have to set up
Well,
like
I
a
wasn't using
foundation
deadly force to protect property. I used deadly force to protect
a little bit
myself.
more than on cross. So on direct, you really have to lead someone up. Like,
Answer my question if
you know,
can.
what were you doing? You know, what was the scene like? Why were you there? Did it like you have to kind of really build up the foundation.
Correct?
On cross, you can go right at them.
Yes.
You can
You
kind of
agree
hop
with
all
me
over the
that you were
place and
not
go
allowed
yes or no
deadly
questions.
force
So
stop
you can do a little
someone from
leading the
smashing
witness.
windows of an
The
unoccupied
question
apartment.
can't really be
Correct.
leading itself,
I don't think
but you can
used
kind of
deadly
lead the,
force for
the
that.
witness a little bit
You'd agree
across.
with me that you can't use
It's a
deadly
fine line.
force to stop someone from lighting a metal dumpster on fire, correct?
Correct.
You'd agree with me that you can't use deadly force to stop someone from tipping over.
Correct.
You'd agree you can't use deadly force to stop someone from lighting a flatbed trailer on fire, correct?
Correct.
You'd agree with me that you can't use deadly force to stop someone who is about to start an unoccupied car on fire, correct?
Correct.
You'd agree with me that you can't use deadly force to stop someone from lighting some traffic cones in the middle of the street on fire, correct?
Correct.
So you understand that there's a difference between using deadly force to protect yourself and using it to protect property.
Here, I'll show everyone what we're doing.
And you'd
See,
agree with me that you're not allowed
I could do this.
to use deadly force to protect property, correct?
Yes.
But yet you have previously indicated that you wished
Say
you
hi,
had
Instagram.
your AR-15 to protect someone's property, correct?
I'm going to ask you to go into the library again for a moment, please. Please don't talk about the case.
I don't think I moved. Uh-oh. The prosecutor's about to get a little lecture again from the judge. So this is a good time to give. I had wanted to hop on about this Kyle case a couple times, but I figured I'd save it for now to see what's going on. Monday was probably one of the most disastrous. I'm sure you've all seen it at this point. The guy with the gauges, when they got him on cross. I mean, there was a mic drop moment on cross, and even up until then, cross was unbelievable. Yeah, I'm on YouTube right now doing live stream, so that's why it's weird. I'm just letting everybody like hop on because of Coffee and California Politics. We're usually on IG, but no, I'm over on YouTube live streaming this right now. So, but Monday was a masterclass in cross, and
can't go into this, and he's asking.
maybe pin your live on Instagram so people know what you're doing. I guess I could.
And the next time it happens, I'll be asking for a mistrial with prejudice. He's an
Whoa. Oh no.
First of all, Your Honor, this was the subject of a motion. I'm well aware of that. And the court left the door open.
For me, not for you.
My
Ooh.
understanding of
You should have come and asked for reconsideration. You did on the one motion, and in fact, I granted your motion for reconsideration.
That was not a motion.
Excuse me. I did. I granted.
We did not move
That
to
was
reconsider.
their motion.
We've not filed any
Forgive me.
motions to reconsider in this case.
That was their motion for reconsideration, which I denied. But I said I denied it, or I indicated a bias towards denial is what I did. Held it open with a bias towards denial. Why would you think that that made it okay for you without any advance notice to bring this matter before the jury? I was astonished when you began your examination by commenting on the defendant's post-arrest silence. That's basic law. It's been basic law in this country for 40 years, 50 years. I have no idea why you would do something like that. And it gives, I'll leave it at that. So I don't know what you're up to.
May I respond?
Yes.
We filed an other acts motion on this exact issue because in my mind, and I argued this, it is identical to what was going on the night of August 25th, in the sense that the defendant was using this exact same weapon. He was using it in a manner to try and protect property.
No, he wasn't.
Your Honor,
geez.
with all due respect,
I'm not going to rehash the motion. That's absolutely untrue. No. Your arguments of record, my comments are of record, and why I ruled as I did is of record. There's nothing that I heard in this trial to suggest that anything's changed. Even if you're correct in your assumption that you know more than I did at the time, you should have come to the court and say, I want to go into this. Why you would think that you could go into it without any advance notice to the court, I don't understand that. And as the defense is pointing out, you're an experienced trial lawyer, and this should not have been gone into.
Your Honor, there have been things in this case, testimony in this case, that I believe opens the door to this. For example, the defense has introduced evidence that
I'm just being quiet because this is a tense moment. The judge is reaming the prosecutor. And I'll break it down after it's over.
Now, there's no justification that I can think of why the defendant would point that gun at someone. The defendant has just testified this morning that he agreed with that person in the yellow pants, that he pointed the gun at him. He said, I was joking when I said that to the guy in the yellow pants, but he said, he's acknowledged that he told the person in the yellow pants, yeah, you're right. I did point a gun at you when you were sitting on a car.
He said, I did. That's what he
Exactly.
testified.
So he's agreeing. May I finish, please? I'd like to have a chance to make a record if I could, without being interrupted, if that's okay.
Oof.
He has mentioned that he's acknowledged that he's used this gun to protect property. He's also just acknowledged that he knows he can't do that. I am attempting to impeach him now with the prior August 10th incident, 15 days prior involving the same gun where he is threatening to use that gun to protect property. It
He
goes,
has a gun with him.
Your Honor, he is saying he wished he did so he could shoot people.
You know, there's a lot of difference between commenting about something when you haven't got a gun and threatening someone when you do.
You know, it's interesting, Your Honor, because the entire defense theory in this case is Joseph Rosenbaum, who was
I
unarmed.
want you to tell me what the defense theory of the case is. I want,
May I,
Look.
may I respond to what you just said, Your Honor? I'd like to respond to what you just said. I apologize, Madam Court Reporter, but I'd like to try and make a record without anyone interrupting me, if that's okay. I believe that there is a central part of this case that Mr. Rosenbaum is making threats that he has no ability to carry out. So to your point, Your Honor, you're arguing that this August 10th incident, one aspect of why you don't believe it's relevant is the defendant didn't have the gun with him. This case is about someone who didn't have a weapon, and yet the jury is being told because of those threats, that means the defendant has to defend himself. So with all due respect, Your Honor, mere verbal threats have already been shown to this jury and used as a basis for someone's subsequent actions. I am attempting with the defendant to use his mere verbal threat on August 10th, 15 days prior, that he's going to shoot shoplifters with his AR-15 to impeach the defendant in a murder trial. I would ask the court's forbearance to do that. I apologize, Your Honor. You're right. I probably should have brought this to your attention earlier. I may have misunderstood your ruling because I made that more relevant. You would admit it, or at least consider it it's an admittance. I believe, based on the evidence that we've heard, and more specifically, exactly what the defendant said earlier about admitting pointing a gun at someone who was merely jumping or sitting on a car, that the door is open now to this testimony. And I continue to believe that his state of mind, his intent, his belief as to self-defense is the core of this case. That was the basis for my motion. You were strongly inclined against it. I understand that. But now we're in the middle of trial, and there's been a lot of evidence that's come in that I think makes this relevant. So I'm attempting to impeach the defendant on his beliefs. I believe I'm entitled to impeach the defendant on his beliefs and on his statements.
I'm going to interrupt you now because you're talking about his beliefs. I think that's what they call
His statements to, Your Honor. Because he just said, can't use deadly force, can't threaten to use deadly force to protect property. So now I'm impeaching him on that.
Your Honor, what's
Oh boy.
the court has seen no reason to change its ruling. And just so this record is clear, in spite of the lengthy statement by Mr. Binger, before we started today, the court specifically stated in Mr. Binger's presence, there's been nothing to have me change any of my rulings. There have been numerous occasions during this trial where they've opened the door. The one time when they're going into Mr. Rosenbaum's prior reason he doesn't like guns. And I said something, I whispered in Mr. Krause's ear, it's because of the prior convictions. Please stop. And he did. He knows if you're going to go into something that's been excluded in a pretrial order, you better ask the court, you better get permission.
Yep.
This is ridiculous.
Yep.
It wasn't excluded, Your Honor.
You know why it was excluded in the first place? Because it was propensity evidence. That is exactly what 90404 is designed to prevent. You're talking about his attitudes. His attitude is he wants to shoot people. Now, I've admitted that kind of evidence in other trials when it's been appropriate. I didn't admit it in this case because to me, what I've heard in this trial, and by the way, Mr. Richards absolutely correctly points out that just hours ago, I said I had heard nothing in this trial to change any of my rulings. So why?
Testimony, Your Honor.
Pardon me?
That was before the
Don't
defense testimony.
get brazen with me.
Oof.
You knew
This
very
judge
well.
has been
You
pretty
know very
even
well that an
keel
attorney
and
can't go into these
fun
types
and
of areas
kooky.
when the judge has already ruled
He's
without
mad.
asking
To get
outside
him
the
this
presence of
mad,
the
you
jury
must
to do
really
so.
have stepped
Don't
in
give
it.
me that. That's number one. Number two, this is propensity evidence. I said at the time that I made my ruling, and I'll repeat again now for you, I see no similarity between talking about wishing you had your AR gun, which you don't have, so that you could take fire.
I'm waiting. This is still going on. It's still going back and forth. What's happening?
And the incidents in these.
But as soon as it's over, I'll
which
break
are
down what the
not-
heck is happening and why he's so angry.
There's nothing in your case that suggests the defendant was lying in wait to shoot at somebody or reflecting upon the shooting for a vast amount of time. Every one of the incidents involves matters that involve seconds in time. So I commented at the time, I don't see the similarity, and I don't see the similarity now. If it's not similar, that's the whole rule. Those are all the exceptions to 90404. Check the authorities. Wigmore and evidence. Judge Weinstein, Colonel McCormick. It's the crime. The prior act has to bear the signature of the accused, or it has to be so similar as to suggest it's a common plan or something like that. You have an incident where he's making comments about some alleged shoplifters versus crimes that involve instantaneous actions, whether premeditated murder or whether self-defense, that's for the jury to decide. But I don't see the similarity. I said it couldn't come in, and it isn't coming in, no matter what you think. Number two, I have to be concerned that with what Mr. Richards has said about the progress of the trial, and when you were I said you were over the line, close to or over the line on commenting on the defendant's pretrial silence, which is a well-known rule.
He's really upset about
I'm
that one.
astonished.
Commenting about someone's
that was
constitution.
been an issue.
You have the
So I wouldn't have
constitutional
another
right
issue as long
to
as this
remain
case
silent,
continues.
and
Is
you
that clear?
can't really comment on that.
Thank you. Ask the jury to come back in, please.
Okay. So they're bringing the jury back in. Let me kind of break down what the heck just happened and why everyone got got all flustered. When you start a case, there are what they call motions in limine and pretrial motions, and you kind of hash out like what evidence can come in, what evidence can't come in, because you want some things granted. You have to make arguments as to like, well, we don't want this evidence to come in. We don't want this testimony to come in. And you have to make an argument before a trial starts. And so both sides make these motions. The judge rules on these motions, these pretrial motions or these motions in limine. And throughout the case, those are like the ground rules. It's like when you play baseball and you decide what the ground rules are. Like this, if the ball falls over this fence, it's a ground rule double. If it hits above this line, it's a home run. So they decide this stuff before trial. And when another side tries to sneak in stuff that already the judge has ruled is not coming in. So in this case, they ruled that some evidence regarding propensity. And in this case, he's trying to prove that Kyle had a propensity to go and shoot people. And that was already ruled pretrial motion that can't come in.
Okay.
So this prosecutor is trying to get to that point. And that's why the defense attorney flipped out and said, I'm going to move for a mistrial because this is ridiculous. We need to remove the jury. Once you get that information into the jury, it's kind of like you can't unring the bell.
I couldn't
And
give
that's
you
why
exact
it's such a
time, but
big
I'd
deal.
say I
Because
got
once the
off
jury
from
hears this
between
stuff,
6 and 7.
you can tell them,
I
like,
never
oh, don't
spent
listen to that,
a while.
scratch that, strike that. But you can't unring the bell in
Yes.
trial. Once the
Okay,
jury
so,
hears that, that's a big deal.
The rest of the time, it seems like you're being driven around in Mr. Black's car. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Why did you?
So
guys
the judge
choose his instead of yours?
is really he's on a
At the time, I didn't.
It's
have a driver's
really close.
license, and
he's
I
really
would
fed up
drive
with this
just to
prosecutor.
get to
First,
work,
he's
and
commenting on his Fifth Amendment right to
sometimes
remain
go to
silent,
Dominic's dad's
which
house.
should not be commented on. That's
So
a
even though you didn't have
constitutional
a
right.
driver's license, you drove from your home in Antioch to
Yeah, I
the
mean, you have that
residence to
right.
work
There shouldn't
that
be
day.
anything inferred from it. You don't have to explain why
yes,
you
to be able to
invoked the
get to
Fifth
work.
Amendment.
And then
But
after work, you
Now he's
drove
trying to be
without a
sneaky
driver's
and
license
slip in
down to
stuff
Black's house.
that was already ruled out.
So I assume.
And what
that
they were
on the
saying is,
week
like,
prior to that, when you drive yourself to work,
open
that
the
was
door.
also
So that's
without
a
driver's
term
license?
that, like, if a attorney who objected to something,
I'll move on. So you
So
drove to
if
Mr.
attorney
Glasgow's, you left your
who
car there,
wanted something
Yes.
out
and you spent the
leads
night at
up
his
to it and
house.
what they call
Yes.
open the
And
door,
then the
the
next
other
day,
side
you
can go
guys
through that door, meaning
woke up at some point.
if you
and
open the
got
door and you
through.
leave that line of
Is that
questioning
right?
open,
Spent the night at
the
his
other
house
side can go
and,
through it. And that's why they say they've opened the
had
door.
dinner.
But in this
Woke
case,
up in
he
the
tried to be
morning.
sneaky and tried to get in when it,
Had
in regards to
breakfast.
propensity.
We were going.
Because trying to say, well, Mr. Rosenbaum, what, and other testimony, the other
And
side
he
has
came
opened the
down
door,
in,
so we're just going through that
Dominic's
door.
car.
Um, so
And you said
it's that's why
at the
trials
time
are
you were
tricky, is
cleaning
because there's a
graffiti
lot,
at
and a
Rufus.
lot of people
Yes.
think.
And then
Let me
at
just
some
say that
point,
a
I
lot of
believe
people
you
think
said, and I
that
wanna
it's
make sure
like
I'm understanding
in
the
TV
timeline
and it's
here.
Law and
But you
Order, and
went
it's
to one of the car
someone gets
sources
arrested 2 days later, they're
Howard
on trial,
or
which is not the case.
Sam or Sal or
They show
whoever
up
they
with
are, correct?
just a pen and a
Yes.
pad of paper,
Which of the
the attorneys, and they just go
was
right off the cuff. A lot of this is a trial is really
the
premeditated,
one at the
and
northeast corner of
a
50
lot of it
Bedford,
is
correct?
like
And that's the one that had gotten
you can
totally
plan
burnt
as much
out
as
on
possible. You
previous
can plan, we're
nights.
going to bring
Yes,
this
that
witness,
was
we're
the
going to
one
introduce
where
this
everything
exhibit.
was destroyed.
Everybody
The
knows
other car sources still had cars there.
what we're going to introduce. They
Now,
know
before
exactly
that,
which witness
Had
we're
you
going to
ever
bring
worked at
in,
car source before?
and it's
I have
already
not.
pre-planned out. There's
Had
no
you ever bought a car there
surprises.
before?
And
not.
once
Had you
that's
ever even
once that's
heard of
out
car
there,
source before all that?
you just kind of
Yes.
go through your
Through
case.
Dominic?
You
Well,
present
no,
your case, and then you see how it goes. Sometimes the witnesses are
Drive
good,
past on
sometimes
a
they're
daily
bad.
basis. I
In the
was
case of that
in
other
Kenosha
kid
almost every
who
day, and I
completely
drive
blew
down
the
Sheridan
prosecution's
Road
case wide
almost every
open,
day.
sometimes
So
it goes
you
bad,
saw
and that's when you
business
sit there and go,
along
"What
with
the
the
heck just happened?"
Churches and the ultimate gas station and the courthouse and everything else in that area.
Yes.
Why can't the judge sanction them or dismiss them
And
for
you talked
tainting
to
the
these
case?
owners.
Well,
yourself?
that's what the
Me and
defense
Dominic did.
attorney was trying to say. Like,
Did they
if
ask
you continue down this path and you allow this, I'm going to move for a
They didn't
mistrial
ask me.
directly?
because
They didn't ask me
this is
directly. They
evidence
asked
that we
Nick
agreed is
Smith.
not coming into this
Okay.
case.
And
So
was Nick Smith around
that's
for
why
that
defense
at
was
that
like,
point?
he jumped
He
up and he's
wasn't
like,
there when
if
me
you're
and
going to allow
Dominic
this, I'm
brought
moving for a mistrial right
Did
away.
you ever personally witness any of these car source folks, Sal or Sam, or any of the folks that were running that business?
The
Did you ever
prosecution
personally
and
witness them.
I just feel like
Nick Smith to guard any
they're
of their
really
properties.
they
No.
don't have too
Did you
much
ever
to
witness
go on
any
or
of
what
them
they're
ask
painting.
Anyone.
Like I've
regarding
said,
their
I've watched a
properties?
lot of this, and a lot of their questioning, I just don't really understand.
What time,
The
if
the
you
witnesses they
recall,
called
did,
were
you find
a lot of
out
people that were ancillary to what
that
happened that
they'd asked
night.
Nick Smith?
I believe I said
Journalists
in
and photographers,
my
and what did you
examination,
see? And it's like, how
3:30.
at that point, what
That
would
was
they
shortly
know?
after
Like
you
Kyle
had
was a
sent
nobody
text
at that point.
to, Sam.
So why would they all of a sudden?
Correct. And
It's not like
you
Kyle was
texted
famous
him
when he
and
showed up
asked
to
him,
Kenosha. He was only
if
famous
he could
after,
protect his business
or
that night.
infamous. He was
Correct.
infamous after.
And in that
Kenosha.
text you said,
So it's not like someone
"I'm
would see a
more
kid
than
in a
willing
green
and
shirt
will be
when there
armed."
were dozens of
Correct?
people walking
Yes.
around with guns and
You meant you'd be
AR-15s that
armed
they would
with
go,
the
"Oh, this I know who
AR-15.
this kid
Yes.
is." He was very
You
nondescript,
said
so they didn't
that me
know,
and my
and they weren't paying
brother
attention.
would both be there armed, correct?
Yes.
By your brother, you meant Dominic.
Yes.
He's obviously not legally your brother.
No.
And you said in the text, I
Team
just
Kyle, yeah.
need address. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Why did you need the address of a location you'd already been to?
I just wanted to like pinpoint it and on the Google Maps because GPS, because with all the roads were closed down in Kenosha. I just wanted to know the best route to drive there with Dominic.
But you just told us that you drove past here every day up and down Sheridan. Why did you need GPS to help you find a place that you drive past every day?
The roads weren't closed when I drove past them every day.
But you still knew where you were going, right?
Sort of, but with like the back roads.
Okay, so let's talk about the roads being closed. What do you mean by that?
Well, Sheridan Road was closed off, and I'm trying to remember. I don't think there were a lot of roads closed off. I couldn't tell you exactly their names right now.
Was that because there was construction going on?
No, they were closed off because of the riots.
They were closed off to keep people out of the area, right?
Yes.
And you knew there was a curfew that night, right?
It's gonna hurt if he
I believe I got an emergency.
if he gets
alert
acquitted
at
on all
about
charges.
8 p.m.
for
Just
people
like
who have
everybody else
created
saying,
this narrative
"Stay
that
off
Kyle
the street."
Rittenhouse was this domestic terrorist white supremacist who went there
Still
with the
relevant
intent of like
decision
blowing
making.
people away. And even a
Just
lot
like
of
everybody
networks have
else,
kind of backed off
you got a
a
message
lot of this.
saying,
Um,
get off the streets.
they've kind of changed their
Fuck that
tune
guy,
after how
right?
badly
Yes.
this case is going. Now they're backing off. Oh,
came
well,
down.
we didn't really
Correct.
say that he was guilty, but
Already in
you know, there's,
Kenosha.
internet
Downtown
lives
when I got
forever
that
and videos
message.
live
Once you
forever.
got
So
that message, you didn't
um,
decide.
you
I'm
can
gonna
look back
leave
and see
go
what
home
MSNBC
like
and
I'm
CNN were
supposed
saying
to.
about this kid,
Correct.
and how they
I
were.
stayed at the
Even
restaurant.
so, it's sad that you know
And you knew
if this kid walks
that there
and he
was
gets acquitted of all
This
charges.
curfew in
He's
place.
gonna have to live with
that
this
meant
for the
you
rest of his
shouldn't be
life. I mean,
correct.
he's only 18 years old. He's Kyle
You're-
Rittenhouse. His name is famous
say
throughout the country.
Hundreds, if not thousands, of other people there
Like,
that night.
if you want to
that
be an
also got the same
EMT
message.
or a
So if you're all breaking
firefighter,
the law, you
can
too.
he still be an EMT or a firefighter? You know, if that was
I don't
his
think
dream and his
he
goal to
was
be an
really
EMT or a
being
firefighter,
enforced.
So if a
can
law's
he
not
do
being
that? You know, it's
enforced,
sad.
you disregard it.
It's argumentative.
I feel bad for this. You know, maybe I don't feel bad for this prosecutor. I feel like he
You
had to
said
fall
that
on his
there was
sword
a
with this
time
one.
in which Nick Smith asked you guys
Even
to
the
drive him
the
down
the actual
Chicago
DA did not want to take
Correct.
this case. The
to
DA,
buy
like the head
a
of the
piece
district
of body
attorney
armor,
in this
Correct.
area, did not
Down
want to
by
take this
O'Hare.
case. So that
Correct.
that should tell you
And you
something
guys
about
were
this
willing
case.
to do
That the
that.
head attorney, the head
Well,
district
first,
attorney didn't want to take this case.
Dominic was willing to do it. It was more of Dominic's thing because Nick Smith was going to give throwing like $20 to Dominic when he bought it for like gas.
So Nick Smith was going to pay $20 for the gas to drive down to O'Hare, where Nick Smith was planning on buying this body armor.
Yes.
And he needed that body, or the idea was the body armor would be used that night, correct?
I believe so.
That's why there was some urgency about going down right away, right?
Yeah.
This was part of the plan to come down to downtown that night, right?
He wanted to go to O'Hare to buy the body armor. So, yes.
Do you understand my question?
Can you rephrase
Sure.
it?
Absolutely.
Like,
The urgency to get that body armor that day was because he needed it for that night, right?
well, I wouldn't say he needed it, but he wanted it.
And instead of making the drive, you gave that body, your own body armor, to Nicholas Smith.
Correct.
You had it along with you.
Do you think it's possible the prosecutor
You
wants a
brought it
mistrial so they
along
can
with you
start
that
over
day
after the
because
damaging
you
testimony the
thought
other
you might
day?
need it
No,
yourself that night, correct?
No, I kept it in my trunk of the car. I always had it.
You
I don't think a
drive around
prosecutor
body armor
ever
in
wants a
front of
mistrial
it.
because then they got to start all
Well,
over from
it's just
scratch.
in the back of my trunk. I never really took it out.
And no matter what, mistrials are
You said
like
at some point that
you've
day
rung,
you went
again.
to
It goes back to you've
Dolinsky's,
already
that's
rung the bell.
hunting
Like you've
goods,
rung the
fishing
bell.
store
You can't
out
unring
on
the bell.
Highway 31.
This
52nd
previous
Street
trial will still be
by
out there
Uncle
for
Slim's,
jurors
is
to
that
see,
right?
potential
That's
jurors.
And
And they'll see
one
this. They'll
sling
see the
for you
headlines.
and
They'll
one
see
for
that
Dom,
kid saying,
right?
"Yeah,
Yes.
I was
You
only
bought two of
Kyle
the
only
identical
shot
type
me
of
when I
sling,
raised my
correct?
my
Yes,
Glock
the
at him."
cheapest ones they had.
And that's a single point sling, meaning it attaches to
Why did
the
they put
gun
Kyle
in
on the
one
stand? He was so
location,
upset.
correct?
Yes.
I had
And
asked some of
wraps
my
around your
criminal,
body, correct?
Yes.
And it's designed
my
to
other
help
criminal
you
defense
retain
colleagues,
possession of that weapon.
why? Because usually the cardinal rules you don't put your defendant on the stand, especially the way the case is going. I would think,
to hold the
you know,
right
things are
to-
going so well. Why would
But
you
I'm
want to
doing
put him
medical
on the
aid.
stand? But I
don't
guess
have to sit on the ground and have to
because
worry
of
about
self-defense,
Because you
maybe
realized
they
that you
thought they
couldn't
wanted to put him on the stand
have that
because of
gun on you
self-defense to
while you're
clarify
doing
like
any sort
what
of
he was
medical
going
aid,
through that
correct?
night.
I realized
Um,
I knew that I couldn't, without a sling, have it on me. That's why I got the sling. So
Maybe. I mean, it's
But even when
you know,
had
it's
the
like
sling,
dodgeball. It's a bold
there was
move,
a
Cotton. Let's
time
see how it plays
in
out.
which
Right
you
now, it's
took
playing
off
out
your
real well.
entire
I mean, he
gun
did very well on
apparatus and
direct.
handed it
He
to
you know,
Joanne Fiedler.
the emotions
This was
that
in
he
the way
showed
of you trying
shows
to
that he's
shoot
very
someone,
remorseful.
right?
He didn't want to kill
at
that guy.
instance, yes, 'cause
Um,
it was hitting the ground.
Yeah,
The rifle was
it's
hitting the ground.
anybody who
when I
watches
bought it,
him break down
that
can
was
can
the
see that
purpose
those
of
are
it.
raw emotions.
I don't
He
think
wasn't
it really worked.
he wasn't trained.
Now
He's not
that's
acting.
stupid.
If he was,
This big,
from the
long
Oscar because that's great
AR-15
acting.
really got in the way whenever
but-
you tried to help someone, right?
I think
Sometimes-
anybody who watches that
If you had
can
a
see
handgun, for example,
this kid feels bad. He didn't want to do this. You know, he just wanted to
it would've
protect his
physically been
hometown.
Easy for you to try and treat someone. Fair?
If I could have legally carried a handgun, I would have carried a handgun instead of a pistol. I mean, instead of a rifle.
You
As a mama bear, I want to protect him.
grab some
Well, I
medical
think they
supplies.
showed I'm assuming that's
Dominic
his mother
Black's
that they
house
keep panning
before you
to
came
in the
downtown that
seats.
night, correct?
She
I
was
grabbed
very
extra
upset
gauze,
too.
but that's about it.
So if anyone's on here who just joined on, I'm live streaming on YouTube. Kyle Rittenhouse
You
is on the stand right
testified
now. He's under
that
cross examination
your
from the
AR-15
prosecutor.
was loaded with
So if you want to
30
go and join
rounds
over
of
there, that's where I'm
ammunition.
watching
Is
it
that
right now. I'll
Yes.
be watching for a
Where
little
did
bit
that
more.
ammunition come from?
That was from our last.
See maybe if they end.
last trip up north from May, the time we took it up north.
So when the gun was left at Dominic's Black's house, it had that ammunition with it?
Yeah, the ammo was in a box. Magazine. I don't really know.
When you were at Dominic Black's house on August 25th, you found that AR-15 downstairs in his basement, correct?
No,
Where did you find it at?
it was downstairs in the basement, but I was told by Dominic Black, "Hey, go downstairs, grab that rifle, grab your rifle."
So you knew up until that point that rifle was being stored in a gun safe in the garage, correct?
Correct.
And you didn't have the code or any access to that gun safe, correct?
I did not.
It just happened that on this particular day, Dominic Black's stepfather had moved that gun into the house, correct?
Yes,
You didn't know that beforehand?
I didn't.
You didn't know that it had been taken out of the safe?
No.
And so you went downstairs and grabbed it.
After instructed to do so by Dominic, I did.
And it had that magazine?
After I was instructed to do so. After I was instructed to do so by Dominic, I did go downstairs and grab it.
And it had the magazine already inserted in the rifle?
It did.
And the magazine was already loaded with 30 rounds.
I believe so.
When did you chamber a round?
I don't know if I ever did.
Well, you had to have to fire the gun, right?
Yeah, I think it was already chambered when I got it. That's what I remember. I don't remember racking it at all that night.
Because
Racking
the
it.
way this type of gun works is that you have to have a magazine with ammo in it. You have to insert the magazine into the gun, and then you have to rack it to load one of those rounds into the chamber, correct?
Yes.
And you were familiar with how to do all of that, correct?
Yes.
And it can't discharge a bullet unless a bullet is racked into the chamber, correct?
Correct.
And so your testimony here, as best you can recall, is that you never had to do the initial racking because the bullet was already in the chamber when you took possession of it that day. Is that fair to say?
I believe so. I believe that it was already racked.
And the ammunition that was in that was full metal jacket ammunition, correct?
223 full metal jacket.
223 being the caliber
Yes.
and full metal jacket being the type of casing, correct?
Yes. Full metal jacket is the bullet type.
The bullet type. Okay, I apologize. And you're aware there are different types of
It's,
bullets, like hollow point bullets, correct?
It's funny listening to attorneys who don't know
And
anything about
when
guns.
you were
And I don't know if anybody saw
in the
yesterday.
process
They
of
called her.
purchasing this
She
gun,
got a
I
new
wanna back up
nickname,
for a second.
Grambo.
You said
She was like a
that
little old
30
granny,
rounds of ammo
and
were
she was
left
like, she
over
was sassy.
from
It was funny.
previous. I assume you mean.
And
when
she was
you
like
were up in Lake
explaining to
Yes.
the prosecution more
practicing
about
with the gun
guns
up
than
there?
he knew,
Yes.
which was
And they-
kind of funny to watch.
Dominic Black's family has some sort
Noodles
of
is
firing
speaking at a vaccine
range or
clinic after being
shooting range
MIA
up
for
there, is
over a
that
week.
right?
Won't be surprised by
They
any of the
have,
BS he will
gravel
be spewing out of his
where, it's safe to
snake
shoot.
mouth.
And you and
Um,
Dominic would practice with.
Yeah,
your
I guess the
AR-15
pressure got
shooting
too
at
much,
targets in
and
that
once the
route,
rumors started
correct?
swirling that he had Bell's palsy and
And you would shoot
GBS and all that
targets as
stuff,
far as what?
they were like, "Oh, we got to
75
get him
yards
out here."
No,
How close were the targets?
I was about. I think the furthest I ever got was maybe from me to the TV.
You didn't shoot at any targets farther away than that?
No,
Dominic Black testified that he shot at targets 75 yards away. Did you see him do that?
I didn't, but I don't know what Dominic Black saw or what Dominic Black was shooting at. I wasn't with him when he did that.
You were aware of the fact that the AR-15 was capable of hitting targets much further away than you to the TV, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah, there's a
You
side.
know the
Yeah,
capabilities of your own weapon.
I knew that it could shoot, and I believe from a distance. I don't know.
It's
far
amazing how they
from
always
the
want to
fence, but I
take credit for when the
and
rates go down, but now that the rates are going back up, they don't want to take.
Did you?
It's not their
personally
fault. When the rates go down, it's all
Full
the
metal
government
jacket
did it. And the
ammunition?
government did an incredible
not.
job of
Who did?
doing X, Y, and Z,
Government.
and everything
Did
we're
you
doing
ask
is
them to
working.
purchase it?
I did
But when the
not.
rates go back up, they're like, oh, it's not our fault. It's all you people's fault
So
because you're not
didn't
listening to
know
us.
What type of ammo was in
Kyle's a testament to why
Right.
kids cannot take them without parental
I knew they
consent,
were
mental capacity,
223
discern consequences. Respectfully,
Full
I
Metal
don't know
Jackets.
law or details of this case.
Magazine.
Oh,
So you knew the type of round, but you didn't know what those rounds were capable of doing. Is that fair to say?
Believe a bullet's a bullet.
I mean, kids, yeah, like little kids, but like
As you
Kyle's
sit here
17,
today,
he's
you
18
know that there
now,
are
so,
different
like-
types of bullets, right?
Yes.
he's
You know
old enough to
hollow
join
point
the
bullets, for
armed
example,
forces.
do different things to a animal or a human than Full Metal Jacket bullets, correct?
Yeah. Full Metal Jacket is like a defense round, like another type of defense round. I know people use Full Metal Jacket for hunting, and Hollow Point is something that causes more damage.
Hollow point bullets are designed to hit the animal that they're being shot at. Let's say a deer, for example, and explode inside that body, correct?
No, I don't think so.
When you say explode, are you saying expand or explode? Because there are such things as exploding bullets.
Sure. Let me rephrase.
This prosecutor, I don't think this prosecutor
What is
knows
your
what a
understanding
gun
of
is.
hollow point bullet would do if it were
He's
shot
like,
at, say, a deer.
It's a hollow point, and
Man,
when
I
it
don't
gets when
think
it
people
hits
use
the
hollow
animal,
point.
it just
That wasn't my
explodes,
question.
and they
So
blow
what is
into
your
a million
understanding of
pieces.
What that bullet would do. Let me rephrase it then, because you're aware that people use hollow point bullets in their pistols to defend themselves against other people, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ryan
Most of the
Walsh,
time, people use hollow point ammo
testified in
to
this trial
protect
that
themselves.
He was carrying a pistol loaded with hollow point ammunition for self-defense. Do you remember that testimony?
I do.
So, what is your understanding, if you have one, as to what hollow point?
If you're a
ammunition
prosecutor,
would do to a human?
Learn about
I
guns.
believe it
Like,
would
just
do the
learn
same
about
thing
guns.
as
Like, it's
any
not
other
that hard.
bullet.
Just learn basic
Like
gun.
I said,
I mean,
bullet's a bullet.
you're getting schooled by
I believe
an 18-year-old
hollow
kid
points-
on what ammunition is
I'm
and
sorry,
guns
I don't know
are.
much about ammo. I'm trying to think of what I remember, but I just don't know much about ammo.
So you didn't know the difference between what a full metal jacket bullet would do versus a hollow point, right?
I believe a hollow point I just don't know much about this. I believe a hollow point would cause
Yeah, this
more
lawyer
damage.
is. He
To the
he
first
just
target.
doesn't look. I don't
But
know.
it wouldn't continue through to any other targets.
It's amazing how much psychology goes into
Whereas a
trials, especially
full
big
metal
trials like
jacket
this.
bullet
Like
is
who's
specifically
actually the
designed
prosecutor,
to
who,
continue through its first target,
you know.
and keep
I
flying.
mean, you go
Correct?
back to like
First of all, the hollow point.
defendant is not a
is
ballistic
not
expert.
guaranteed
Correct,
to stay
and
in
so
the
asking
first
him to
object struck.
comment on it.
So what you said was not correct. Secondly,
There's no testimony on that, Your Honor.
no, but you've been testifying, and that's what Mr. We're going to take a break for lunch. Please don't talk about the case. Read, watch, or listen to any account of the trial. We'll see you. Let's hope at about 12:45.
Okay, so they're breaking for lunch right now.
Let's say 1 o'clock.
That was
I apologize for taking time away from you.
that was not pretty for the prosecution. That looked really bad. Direct went real smooth. I think they laid out the entire scenario. Kyle was very good at, outside of the breakdown, which is expected. I mean, he's going to have to live with that for the rest of his life. Direct went very smooth. They got to the point. They laid out the story. They explained everything that was happening. And Cross was a nightmare, and prosecution. Okay, so I would recommend, there is a really good live stream with a bunch of other attorneys. It's Rakite Law. It's RE. I think it's this. You can look it up. I think it's Rakite Law. I'm putting it in the chat. But it's very good. They have a lot of criminal defense attorneys
Thank you.
on there. And they're doing the same thing. They've been watching the whole trial. They're breaking it down, going over stuff. So you can check that out there. I think it's it's much better than just watching the trial and not knowing what's going on. At least you have these attorneys who are very knowledgeable. I think they're also like Team Kyle too, so that helps. So yeah, Cross did not go well. He was trying to and it just didn't go well. I think he tried to impeach him. He tried to show that Kyle had a propensity, which is not allowed under these pretrial motions, that he had a propensity to show up because he played video games, and that's why he went down there, so that he could start shooting people, as if he was like he had this intent and he was like a mass murderer or something. I think it fell flat, and I think the jury, it's different. If you've never been on a jury before, I would always suggest be on a jury at least once in your life. If you got the time, go be on a jury. It's interesting. It's an interesting experience. But when the jury's watching this, they don't really understand what's happening. Technically, that's why you usually don't want attorneys on juries, because they can explain a lot of stuff or be good or bad for your case. So they see this stuff, and they see that the prosecution got reamed out not once but twice, that they had to be asked to leave the courtroom twice, which to the jury goes, this prosecution's doing something wrong and the judge is not happy, and so we have to leave. It just doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good. It doesn't look smooth. It looks like the prosecution's being sneaky and sleazy, and it just helps the defense's case. And I think the fact that this was maybe their one shot to get Kyle on the stand and impeach him and impugn him and go after his credibility and his propensity, which you can't go after, and his character and all that stuff. So yeah, I think the prosecution every day, I think the prosecution had a bad day, and then it gets like inevitably worse. Like Monday was bad. Yesterday was bad. They had some guy who was full attitude. I think it was this freelance journalist or photographer, just reaming the guy. So it was not going well for him. So today is definitely not going well. They had their one shot at Kyle. There'll probably be a redirect. Defense counsel will come back out. They'll do what they call a redirect, where defense can come back out. They can ask more questions, kind of redirect, and it is what it says. It's like you want to redirect the attention on this witness's specific part of the testimony, and then they have to do a recross. They'll probably do a recross again of Kyle. This is probably going to last a while. Kyle's going to be on the stand for many hours. They're going to go back and forth on this stuff. But the first cross, not good. Definitely not good. And when you do testimony, when someone introduces a witness, there's direct. So direct is the first time you start testimony, and whatever is discussed in that testimony, that's the scope of the testimony, meaning you can't all of a sudden just go off and be like, oh, like I'm going to start talking about this because I want to. It's like, no, you have to, the idea of cross is you have to stay within the scope of the direct. And that, yeah, exactly. Where's he going with this line of questioning? I'm not really sure. I mean, I guess he's trying to go with, why did he have a gun? What was his reason for having a gun? He's trying to prove that like he more wanted to go somewhere with a gun rather than be helpful, like an EMT or a medic or someone who's just cleaning up. Like you could have gone to Kenosha that night and not had a gun, even though everybody had a gun and though it's lawful to have a gun and protect yourself. So that's why I think they're trying to prove like you didn't have to have a gun that night, but people did have guns that night and people can protect themselves. And, it all happened so fast. So yeah, a little bit different than usual when it comes to coffee in California politics this time around. And this was a case. I'm glad we tuned in for this hour, because it was a very, very dramatic hour. We'll be back next week as normal. But this was just too big. I didn't expect Kyle to get on the stand. And then when I saw Kyle was on the stand, I was like, I got to tune in. We got to watch this, because it's unbelievable. And then when I saw him break down, and I was like, we got to hop on and get going with this, because I think this is really important for people to watch. Because this isn't just some like pedestrian guy. This isn't like some random photographer or freelance journalist. This is Kyle Rittenhouse is on the stand. You put the defendant on the stand. So, yeah. So next week, we'll be back to normal, Coffee and California Politics. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m., going to have a podcast. Cynthia is going to come back. She was on another podcast episode. We're going to talk about a video, an interview about why are people leaving California. I'm sure you all have your opinions. This guy did a whole interview of like why California is falling apart. We're going to watch that video. And yeah. He broke down. Yeah, go back and watch it. It was heartbreaking. It was heart-wrenching to see the poor kid. He was losing it. I thought he was going to have a panic attack. He couldn't breathe. He was crying. The judge just was like, okay, we're going to take a break. We're going to stop this right now. He couldn't even explain what was happening. So you'll have to go back and watch it if you didn't see it. It's really heartbreaking. The kid, you could tell it's raw emotion. Kid doesn't feel he's upset. He's going to have to live with this the rest of his life. Even if he does get acquitted, he's going to have to live with the fact that he took another man's life. And it's sad, but that's why it's such a big case. And it's why it's, got national attention that it does. So anyway, tomorrow at 8 p.m. live on YouTube, we'll be doing the podcast. Later today, I'll be on a radio show with Shara McKeown from Let Them Breathe. And and as always, next week we'll be back with Coffee and California Politics, where we'll talk more about coffee and California politics. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I'll see you on the next one. Later.